Kiana opened the door to her friend's apartment and was immediately hit with the sound of laughter, music, and clinking glasses. The company party was in full swing. Maya greeted her in the hallway with open arms. "Hey girl, I thought you weren't going to make it. I'm so sorry I got tied up at the office." Kiana took off her heels and straightened her dress. It was dark blue, structured, professional, the usual. Her closet was full of nothing but seriousness. 10 years as a corporate accountant had trained her to be invisible. The living room was packed. Maybe 20 people, all colleagues from Maya's creative agency. Kiana looked around and felt that familiar heavy ache in her chest. Couples everywhere. Couples. There was a guy with his arm around his girl's waist, and she was throwing her head back, laughing. A husband and wife stood quietly by the window talking low, just comfortable together. No words needed. Another pair was on the sofa, him stroking her arm, her smiling softly. Kiana walked toward the table and picked up a glass of wine. 38 years old and alone. She had a 2-bedroom condo in a good neighborhood, a stable job, and a decent $75,000 salary, enough to live on. But that was it. No one beside her. No one to wrap their arms around her for no reason in the middle of the evening. No one waiting for her at home. "Kiana, why are you over here looking so down?" Maya came over and sat next to her in the corner of the kitchen. "Drink up, relax a little." "I'm fine, really." Kiana tried to smile. "Just tired." "Tired, huh?" Maya snorted. "You need a man. That's what you need. Stop being out here all by yourself." "Where am I supposed to find one, though?" Kiana took a sip of wine. "All the good men are taken. What's left is either an alcoholic or still living with his mama." "Now don't say that." Maya leaned closer, lowering her voice. "See Elijah over there standing by the bar in the blue shirt? He's divorced, has 2 kids, and manages sales for a solid company. His wife left him about a year ago for another man. He's still hurting. I've known him since college. He's a good man for real." Kiana glanced across the room. The man, around 42, tall, athletic build, dark hair with some gray at the temples, was talking to someone with a glass of beer. He had an open, pleasant smile, jeans, a button-down, nothing flashy. "I'm introducing you." Maya was already standing up. "Maya, no, wait." Kiana grabbed her friend's arm, but Maya was already weaving through the crowd. A minute later, Mia returned with Elijah. Kiana nervously smoothed her dress and patted her hair. "Elijah, this is Kiana Evans, my best friend." "Kiana, this is Elijah Sterling, my former classmate." "Pleasure to meet you, Kiana." Elijah extended his hand and shook hers firmly but gently. His eyes were warm brown. "Ma's told me so much about you." "She has?" Kiana looked at her friend questioningly. "Only good things," Mia winked. "All right, I'm out. My guests are getting out of hand without me. You two chat." Kiana was left alone with Elijah. An awkward silence fell. She hadn't dated in ages. Her last relationship ended 5 years ago. Since then it had been work home, work home. Friends invited her out, but she usually declined. What was the point? She'd come alone. She'd leave alone. "Mind if I sit?" Elijah gestured to the chair beside her. "Of course not." He sat down and placed his glass on the counter. "Maya mentioned you're an accountant." "That's right. With a large construction firm, been there 10 years. Stability is good." Elijah nodded. "I'm a sales manager. I'm always on edge. Clients, quotas, reports. Sometimes I envy jobs like yours. Go in, do your work, go home. No late night calls." "Oh, I get late nights too." Kiana chuckled. "When reports are due, I barely sleep 3 hours." Elijah laughed. His laugh was loud and genuine. Kiana felt herself ease up. Talking to him was surprisingly easy. He asked questions, listened without interrupting, and shared his own story, his job, his children, his divorce. "Were you married long?" Kiana asked cautiously. 15 years. Elijah's face clouded. "We divorced a year ago. She left for someone else. Said the love was gone. She wanted a new life. The kids stay with me on the weekends. They officially live with her, but I pay $1,200 a month in child support. Asher is 8 and Violet is 5. They're good kids, smart. I miss them all week long." "That sounds tough." Kiana touched his arm. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring up painful stuff." "It's okay." Elijah shrugged. "It's been a year. I've come to terms with it. Just stings. You think you're building a family and then it all falls apart in a day. Now I rent a tiny one-bedroom. It gets tight when the kids visit. We all sleep in one room but we manage. Kiana listened thinking. Here he is. An ordinary man, not a drunk, not a bum. He works. He loves his children. He's heartbroken from a divorce. A good man. Just like Maya said, they don't make men like this anymore. They talked the whole evening. Elijah shared stories about his kids, how Asher was learning to play football, how Violet sang songs from animated movies, how they made pancakes together on Saturday mornings. Kiana talked about her job and the condo she bought 3 years ago, which she was close to paying off. Elijah listened intently, asking follow-up questions. She'd forgotten what it felt like to have someone genuinely interested in her. When the guests started to leave, Elijah asked for her number. Can I call you? He asked at the door. It was really nice meeting you. Absolutely. Kiana felt her heart flutter. She hadn't felt this kind of nervous excitement in forever. Elijah called the next day and asked her out for coffee. Kiana accepted, though her stomach was tight with fear. What if I'm disappointed? What if last night was just a fluke? It wasn't a fluke. Elijah showed up with a bouquet of yellow roses. He said he chose yellow specifically to bring joy. They sat in the coffee shop for 2 hours talking about everything. He made her laugh with work stories and she told him about accounting mishaps. It was easy, like catching up with an old friend. The following week was filled with phone calls. Elijah called every evening checking in. Kiana found herself waiting for his calls, staring at her phone, smiling when the screen lit up. Maya chuckled knowingly. See, I told you he was a good man. The next week was their second date. Elijah came with flowers again, this time white chrysanthemums. They went to the movies, then walked along the waterfront. He took her hand and Kiana didn't pull away. The warmth of his palm, the closeness, it felt good. She hadn't felt like a woman and not just a worker bee in a long time. Third date, fourth date. Elijah was attentive. He always opened doors, helped her put on her jacket, and walked her home. No suggestive comments, no pressure. He said he didn't want to rush things. It was important to get to know each other. Kiana appreciated that. After her last relationship ended in infidelity after 6 months, she was terrified of opening up. But Elijah was different. He spoke about his children and showed her photos. Asher on the football field, Violet in a princess dress. He spoke about his dream of rebuilding a real family where his children could grow up with love and stability. After a month they were official. Kiana, I want to be with you. Seriously. Kiana cried happy tears. She hadn't cried like that from joy, not pain, in years. 38 years old. And here it was, a second chance. A chance at a family. They started spending more time together. Elijah came over in the evenings. They ate dinner and watched movies. Kiana cooked his favorite dishes, pot roast, chili, even homemade dumplings. He swore they were the best he'd ever had. He complimented her and held her. She was melting. Her life was finally full. No more evening emptiness. Now there was Elijah with his warmth and his attention. 2 months later, Elijah introduced her to his children. He brought them to a local park to meet up. Asher, a serious boy with dark eyes, looked guarded. Violet, curly-haired and wearing bows, hid behind her father's legs. Kiana was more nervous than she was for her college exams. She brought along coloring books and chocolate bars. The kids didn't warm up immediately. Asher was quiet, answering in monosyllables. Violet took the chocolate but eyed Kiana suspiciously. Kiana understood. They were afraid she would try to replace their mother. She didn't rush them. She just stayed nearby, smiled, and asked about school and kindergarten. By the end of the outing, Violet took Kiana's hand. Kiana felt a lump rise in her throat. After that, meetings with the children became regular. Elijah brought them every other weekend. They went out, just the 3 or 4 of them. Kiana bought them ice cream, took them to the movies, and rode the Ferris wheel. Asher started telling her about football and showing her tackles. Violet asked her to read fairy tales. Kiana felt a warmth spreading in her chest, something close to motherhood. She had no children of her own. Doctors had told her, "You can try, but the chances are slim." And here were 2, ready-made, lively, and full of personality. She grew to love them sincerely. 3 months into the relationship, Elijah brought up moving in. They were sitting in her kitchen drinking tea. Rain was sheeting down the window panes. Listen, he began, setting his mug down. I've been thinking, maybe I should move in here. Kiana froze. Move in? How? Well, I'm renting my place and paying $1,800 a month. That's money down the drain. You have a 2-bedroom condo. We have enough space. We can make the second room the kids' room when they visit. We can live together, get used to each other, and then get married this summer. I'm serious, Kai. I want a family with you. Her heart hammered. Family. She'd wanted it for so long, all those years alone. And now a proposal. Not for marriage yet, but close enough. Living together, being side by side every day, the kids on weekends, a real family. Are you sure? She asked cautiously. We've only been seeing each other for 3 months. Kai, I'm sure about you. Elijah took her hand. You're kind, caring, and the kids love you. I see how much effort you put in. I don't need any more time to know. You're the one. Let's try it. If anything goes wrong, we'll fix it. But I believe we can make this work. Kiana looked into his warm brown, sincere eyes. She wanted to believe him so badly. 38, her last chance. Children, family, happiness, everything she dreamed of. Okay, she whispered. Move in. Elijah beamed, hugging her tightly. Thank you, baby. You won't regret it. I promise. They started prepping the condo the following week. Kiana cleared out half of her closet and bought new bedding. A double set with a small floral pattern. Elijah brought his things, 2 suitcases, a box of books, and his laptop. Not much. He said he left the rest for his ex-wife. He didn't want to squabble over stuff. Kiana thought, that's generous. He's not greedy. They set up the kids' room together. Kiana bought a bunk bed. Asher on top, Violet on the bottom. She got bedding with cars and princesses. A soft rug for playing on the floor. Toys, building blocks, dolls, and action figures. Elijah watched her arranging everything neatly and said, You're just like a mother to them, better than their own even. Kiana smiled. She wanted to be better. She wanted the children to love her, Elijah to be proud, and everything to work out. When he finally moved in, Kiana felt a strange mix of emotions. On one hand, joy. There he was, home every evening. They ate together, talked, and fell asleep side by side. On the other hand, a faint anxiety. The condo was no longer just hers. Elijah's shoes took up half the entryway. His razor and shower gel appeared in the bathroom. His mug, his plate, little things. But they shifted the space, making it theirs. Elijah made himself at home. Flopping onto the sofa after work, turning on the TV. Sports, news, whatever. Kiana cooked dinner and brought him his plate. He nodded without taking his eyes off the screen. Thanks, baby. She ate alone in the kitchen. Elijah said he was used to watching football. He couldn't do without it. Kiana didn't object. A man needed to relax after work. It was normal. She waited for the first weekend with the kids with nervous anticipation. Elijah brought them over on Friday evening. Asher and Violet ran into the condo, shouting with delight when they saw their room. Daddy, look, a bunk bed. Asher climbed to the top. Aunt Kiana, are these dolls for me? Violet hugged a big doll in a pink dress. For you. Kiana smiled. Just be gentle with them. Elijah went into the living room and turned on the TV. Kiana stayed with the children, helping Violet dress the doll and building a block garage with Asher, then taking them to dinner. She had stocked up on everything the kids loved. Hot dogs, mashed potatoes, yogurt, and cheese. Elijah had said Asher loved dumplings and Violet loved cottage cheese pancakes. Kiana made both. She spent 2 hours at the stove, but it felt good. The children ate heartily. Violet smeared sour cream on her cheek. Kiana wiped it away with a napkin and laughed. Elijah was sitting at the table scrolling on his phone. Good food, Kai, he said, but he didn't look up. After dinner, the children ran off to play. Kiana washed the dishes. Elijah went back to the TV and opened the fridge, pulling out a bottle of beer. Her beer. She bought 1 bottle last week just to have it. Elijah drank it without asking. Kiana didn't say anything. It's nothing, just 1 bottle. In the evening, she tucked the children in. She read Violet the story of Cinderella and Asher, a book about pirates. They fell asleep quickly, tired out. Kiana crept out of the kids' room, closing the door softly. Elijah was snoring on the sofa. The TV glowed in the dark. She turned it off, covered him with a throw, and stood watching him. This is happiness, she thought. Maybe not perfect, but it's mine. Saturday morning started with children's laughter and stomping. Kiana woke up at 7, though it was her day off, but Asher and Violet were already racing through the condo playing hide and seek. Elijah was asleep, his face buried in the pillow. Kiana quietly got up, put on her robe, and went to the kitchen. The children burst in after her. Aunt Kiana, what's for breakfast? Violet tugged her sleeve. What do you want? Pancakes, cereal. Pancakes, they shouted in unison. Kiana took out flour, eggs, and milk and started mixing the batter. The children sat at the table swinging their legs, talking about school and kindergarten. Asher complained about a classmate who was a bully. Violet boasted that she'd learned a new song. Kiana listened, nodding, flipping pancakes on the griddle. The kitchen smelled of butter and vanilla, cozy. Elijah finally appeared closer to 10. Sleepy in a wrinkled t-shirt, he sat down at the table and yawned. Any coffee? I'll brew some. Kiana put the coffee maker on the stove. Daddy, are we going to the park today? Asher was eating his third pancake. I don't know, son. I'm tired. Elijah rubbed his face with his hands. It was a tough week. Maybe we can just chill at home. But you promised, Violet pouted. Sweetie, Daddy needs to rest, Kiana said, handing Elijah his coffee. We can go to the park ourselves if you want. Just us? Asher looked skeptical. Why not? We'll go to the playground, ride the swings. The children exchanged glances and nodded. Elijah gave Kiana a grateful smile. You're a saint. You know that? He murmured when the children ran off to get dressed. A saint? Kiana smirked to herself. Somehow the word made her feel a little sad, not happy. But she shook off the feeling. It's fine. The man is tired. He has a right to rest. They were out for 2 hours. Violet rode the carousel. Asher played soccer with the other boys. Kiana sat on a bench watching them, thinking about how she could be their mother. Not biological but real. The one who was there every day comforting them, celebrating their successes. Elijah had said his ex-wife barely spent time with the children. She was busy with her new man, so she was happy to send them off on the weekends. Kiana felt angry at that woman. How could anyone abandon such good children? They returned home for lunch. Elijah was stretched out on the sofa watching football. 3 empty beer bottles sat on the coffee table. Daddy, we're back. Violet ran to him. Sure. Honey, the game's on. Elijah didn't turn his head. Kiana took the kids to the kitchen and started making lunch. Soup, meatballs, and salad. The children helped. Violet cut cucumbers with a plastic knife, and Asher set the table. Kiana taught them, showing them how to do things right. Felt good to be needed, to be important. When she called Elijah for lunch, he waved her off. Later, penalty kick coming up. They ate without him. The children praised the soup. Violet asked for seconds. Kiana poured her another bowl and stroked her hair. Asher looked at her seriously. Aunt Kiana, are you and Dad going to get married? Kiana froze, the ladle in her hand. Yes, she said softly. We plan to this summer. Will you be our mother? Violet's eyes were wide. If you two wouldn't mind. Kiana knelt beside her. I would really like that. Violet thought about it, then nodded. I don't mind. You're nice and you make good pancakes. Asher didn't say anything, but Kiana could see he didn't mind either. He was just shy. After lunch, the children ran off to play again. Kiana did the dishes, looking out the window. Outside it was still drizzling, the sky gray, the yard bleak. But inside it was warm. The children had accepted her. Elijah was nearby. Wedding soon. Everything was coming together. That evening after Elijah dropped the children back at their mother's, Kiana sat in the kitchen with her notebook. It was her habit to track expenses. She always kept meticulous accounts. She opened a page and started writing. Groceries for the weekend: flour, eggs, milk, butter for pancakes. Lunch: chicken, vegetables, pasta. Snacks: cookies, juice. Dinner on Friday: dumplings, sour cream plus yogurt, cheese, and fruit. Total $580 for 2 days. Kiana frowned. That was a lot. Before she spent maybe $800 a month on food for herself. Now it was almost $600 in one weekend. That meant if it was like this every week, it would be over $2,000 a month just for groceries for everyone. Plus her food during the week, plus utilities, plus household cleaners, which she also bought herself. She closed the notebook. It's nothing. He's not my husband yet. He doesn't have to contribute. He works. He pays $1,200 in child support. That only leaves him with about $4,000 a month. He was paying $1,800 for rent before. He's saving money now for the wedding. It's logical. I can put up with it. But an uneasy feeling lingered. Elijah hadn't once asked how much the groceries cost. He didn't offer any money. He just stayed silent, ate, and drank her beer as if it were his due. The next week, Elijah came home late from work. Kiana had already eaten, but she left him a meat casserole in the fridge. He heated it up and sat across from her. "How was your day?" Kiana asked. "Fine. Clients were a pain. Didn't hit my quota. My boss was yelling. It was hard." Kiana nodded sympathetically. "Want some tea? Beer is better. Is there any in the fridge?" Elijah opened the fridge and pulled out a bottle. Kiana noticed it was her last one. She had planned to drink it on Friday after work to unwind. Elijah chugged it down, burped, and said, "Listen, you need to buy some real beer. One bottle isn't serious." Kiana blinked. "Real beer? Yeah, a case. Enough to last. I drink one bottle every day to relax. I need a case." "A case is expensive," Kiana said cautiously. "About $70. "So what? You work." He said it easily, casually, as if it were self-evident. Kiana stayed silent, got up, and collected the dishes. Elijah turned on the TV and sprawled on the couch. The next day, Kiana bought a case of beer. $70. Elijah was as thrilled as a kid. "Now we're talking." "Thanks, baby." "Baby." Kiana put the case in the fridge. Half the shelves were now occupied by beer bottles. Her own groceries, vegetables, cheese, greens were squeezed onto one shelf. It was inconvenient, but she didn't say anything. The next weekend with the kids went exactly the same way. Kiana bought the groceries, meat for the meatballs, vegetables for the salad, cheese for the casserole. At the checkout, the total came to $620. Kiana winced as she handed the cashier her card. That was more than last time. She took the receipt and tucked it into her pocket. Back home, she wrote it down in her notebook. Elijah met her at the door and helped carry the bags. "Wow, look at all this." He peered into a bag. "Oh, Bolin. I love this kind, the pricey one." "It's $6 a pound," Kiana said, putting the groceries in the fridge. "No kidding," Elijah whistled. "But it's good, though." "Yes, it is." He took the bologna, sliced off a thick piece, and ate it right there by the fridge. Kiana watched silently. She wanted to say, "Maybe wait for dinner." But she held her tongue. Why start a fight? "The kids are coming this evening." Violet immediately ran to Kiana and hugged her legs. "Aunt Kiana, I missed you." Kiana's heart filled with tenderness. She picked the girl up and kissed her cheek. "Me too, sweetie." Asher stood off to the side, but he smiled. He was more open now, less shy. Kiana offered them a snack, bringing out yogurts and cookies. The children chattered excitedly while eating. Elijah sat in the living room watching the news and drinking beer. His third bottle for the evening. Kiana cooked dinner, meatballs, mashed potatoes, and salad. The children helped. Violet mashed the potatoes and Asher sliced the tomatoes. Elijah went out onto the balcony to smoke. He hadn't smoked before, but he'd started, saying it was work stress. Kiana didn't object, but the smell of smoke bothered her. She had to air out the condo so the kids weren't breathing it. At dinner, Elijah said, "Kai, how about we go grilling on Sunday? The kids could use some fresh air." "That's a nice idea." Kiana nodded. "Should I buy the meat?" "Yeah. Get about 6 pounds in charcoal and veggies for the grill." "All right. And don't forget the beer." Elijah added. "What's a cookout without beer?" Kiana mentally calculated. Good marinated meat for grilling would be about $25 a pound. Charcoal, veggies, beer, another $150. A total of about $300 plus what she'd already spent, plus the monthly utilities, plus the household cleaners. She was out of laundry detergent, so she needed to get that. Money was slipping through her fingers like water. On Sunday, they drove out of the city and rented a covered picnic area in a park reserve. Elijah built the fire. Kiana threaded the meat onto the skewers. The children ran around collecting pine cones. Elijah drank 4 bottles of beer and became loud, laughing boisterously. Kiana sat at the table watching him flip the skewers, feeling tired, not physically, but a deep internal weariness, like carrying a heavy load. In the evening, after Elijah had dropped off the children and returned, Kiana was sitting in the kitchen with her calculator, totaling the month's expenses. Groceries $2,400. Utilities had increased. Water, electricity, and heating were all higher. Elijah took 2 showers a day, and she ran the washer every week. The children added to the consumption. It was logical. Household cleaners $200. Detergent, dish soap, air freshener, beer $300, 2 cases a month. Elijah bought his own cigarettes, but the butts were left on the balcony for Kiana to clean up. The total came to $3,900 a month, more than half of her take-home pay. Kiana closed the calculator, put her head in her hands. She was exhausted. So exhausted. But she kept telling herself, it's temporary. Once they're married, they'll split everything 50-50ths. Elijah had said, put up with it. Elijah walked into the kitchen, opened the fridge, and took out a bottle of beer, the last one in the case. Kai, the beer is out. Will you buy some tomorrow? Kiana lifted her head and looked at him. Maybe you could buy it yourself. Elijah raised his eyebrows in surprise. Me? Well, I'm short on cash right now. Didn't hit my quota, so my bonus was cut. You'll just have to put up with it. Put up with it. She heard that word every week. Put up with it. We'll get married. We'll figure it out. Put up with it. I'm paying child support. Put up with it. This is hard for me. Fine, Kiana said softly. Elijah drank his beer, went into the living room, turned on the TV, and lay down on the bed. Kiana stayed in the kitchen, looking out the window at the dark yard. The few scattered lights in the windows. She wondered if she was doing the right thing. Maybe she should have talked about money and expenses right away. But it felt so petty, so wrong to argue with her fiancé over money, to calculate who owed what. It wasn't very family-like. She got up and went into the room. Elijah was snoring, sprawled across the entire bed. Kiana lay down on the edge, pulled the blanket over herself and closed her eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. The numbers spun in her head. $2,400 for groceries, $1,000 for utilities, $300 for beer, $3,900. More than half her salary. In the morning, Kiana woke up to the phone ringing. It was Maya. Kai, how are you? How are things with Elijah? We're fine. Kiana spoke softly so she wouldn't wake Elijah. We're living together. And how's that? Maya laughed. Let's meet up for coffee and you can tell me. They agreed to meet on Saturday. Kiana hung up, got out of bed, went to the kitchen and started brewing coffee. Elijah woke up closer to noon, sleepy, his face creased. What's for breakfast? He asked, yawning. You want eggs? Sure. Kiana made eggs and served them with toast. Elijah ate silently, scrolling on his phone. Kiana washed the dishes, looking at the back of his head. She wanted to ask, when are you going to start helping with the money? But the words wouldn't come. On Saturday, she met Maya at the coffee shop. Her friend looked great. New haircut, fresh manicure, a wide smile. So spill it. Mia rubbed her hands together. How's domestic bliss? It's good. Kiana stirred her coffee. Kiana, I've known you for 100 years. I can tell something's off. Talk to me. Kiana sighed and started telling her about the groceries, the utilities, the beer, how Elijah hadn't once offered to chip in, and the $3,900 in monthly expenses. Maya listened, frowning. Kai, have you talked to him about this? No. Why not? Feels awkward. We're not married yet. What if he gets offended? Maya shook her head. Do you realize he's using you? No. Kiana shook her head. He's just tired. He pays child support. He's saving for the wedding. Kiana. Maya leaned across the table and took her hand. He's living in your house for free, eating your food, drinking your beer. His kids are eating your money. And what's he doing? Lying on the couch watching football. Do you see the problem? He works and so do you. But somehow you are paying for everything. It's not fair. Kiana was silent. Something unpleasant like resentment was stirring inside her. Maya was right. It wasn't fair. But acknowledging it meant shattering the illusion of a happy family. It meant admitting Elijah wasn't perfect, that he was taking advantage of her. Talk to him, Maya insisted. Seriously, tell him you need to split the expenses. It's normal. Grown-ups discuss everything. Okay, Kiana said quietly. I'll try. They finished their coffee. Maya hugged her goodbye. Hang in there, sis, and remember you deserve respect. Kiana walked home slowly, turning the conversation over in her mind. Maya was right. She had to speak up, demand fairness, but she was scared. What if Elijah got angry? What if he left? 38. Her last chance at a family, losing him and being alone forever. At home, Elijah was watching hockey and drinking beer. A new case was in the fridge. Kiana had bought it the day before, even though her money was tight until payday. She walked into the kitchen, sat at the table, pulled out her notebook and opened the expense page. She stared at the numbers, feeling her anger build. $3,900, more than half her salary spent on him, his kids, his beer. And he hadn't even properly said thank you. He just took it for granted. She closed the notebook, stood up, and went into the living room, standing in front of the TV. Elijah, we need to talk. He tore his eyes from the screen and looked at her, annoyed. The game's on right now. Right now? Elijah sighed, put his bottle down on the table. Fine, go ahead. Kiana sat on the edge of the sofa, clenching her hands. Listen, I ran the numbers for the month. Came out to $3,900. That's more than half my salary. Groceries, utilities, beer. It's all on me. Yeah. So Elijah shrugged. You're the lady of the house, but they're your kids, your beer, your food too. Maybe you could help out. Elijah frowned. Kiana, I pay child support. $1,200 every month. I only have about $4,000 left after taxes. $300 of that goes to my commute and lunch at work and cigarettes. That leaves me with $1,500. I'm saving for the wedding. Don't you get it? I get it. But what? Elijah's voice sharpened. You want me to stop saving for the wedding? You want us to just sign the papers at the courthouse and that's it? No celebration, no guests. I just want you to chip in for groceries. When the kids are here, at least half. Kiana felt her voice trembling. Elijah stood up from the sofa, crossing his arms. You know what I hear? You're counting my money. My kids are a burden to you. My beer is a problem. Maybe you don't even need a man. Maybe you're better off alone. No, that's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Elijah raised his voice. We're not even married and you're already sending me bills. That's low, Kiana. Petty. I thought you were different. Kiana felt her cheeks burn. Shameful, petty, low. His words hit her like slaps. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean to. See, that's what I mean. Elijah sat back down and picked up his bottle. Let's not have this conversation again. Once we're married, we'll figure it out. Until then, just put up with it. He turned the TV back on and faced away from her. The conversation was over. Kiana stood up, went to the kitchen, sat at the table, and buried her head in her hands. She wanted to cry, but no tears came. Just a dull, heavy resentment, like a stone in her chest. He was right. She was petty, counting pennies, ruining the relationship. But wait, it wasn't pennies. It was half her salary. It was her hard work, her money. Why should she carry the whole load alone? Kiana opened the notebook and looked at the numbers. Clear, accountant, precise. Every purchase, every expense. Facts. Not emotions, just facts. She stood up, went to the fridge, opened the door and looked inside. The case of beer took up 2 shelves, the $6 Bolin, the expensive $9 frozen dumplings. Elijah loved the fancy kind with marbled beef. The children's yogurts and cheese, her own food, greens, tomatoes, cheese, was huddled in a corner on one shelf. Kiana closed the fridge. An idea sparked in her head. Strange, almost absurd, but it wouldn't let go. The next day at work, Kiana found her colleague, Simone. Simone was older, maybe 50, divorced, lived alone, wise and calm. Kiana respected her. Simone, can I ask you something? Of course. Simone looked up from her computer. Kiana sat down and told her the story. Short, factual. Elijah, the kids, the expenses, the conversation. Simone listened silently, nodding. And what did he say? She asked when Kiana finished. That I was petty, that I should put up with it. Simone smiled but without joy. You know, Kiana, I had a husband just like that. We were married for 20 years. He also said, put up with it. I put up with it. 20 years I carried everything. He worked, sure, but he spent his salary on drinking and fishing trips. I paid the rent, the groceries, the kids' expenses. When I asked for help, he said, you're the wife. It's your duty. You know how it ended. How? Kiana held her breath. I kicked him out when I was 45. Too late, of course. Should have done it sooner, but better late than never. Now I live alone peacefully. My money, my condo, my fridge. No one nagging me, demanding things, or getting offended by the truth. But you're alone now. And so Simone shrugged. Loneliness comes in different forms. There's loneliness with a man who doesn't respect you, and there's loneliness without him. The second one is easier, believe me. Kiana was silent. Simone got up, poured tea from a thermos, and handed her a mug. Kiana, you're a grown woman. You have the right to demand respect. If a man loves you, he will respect you, help you, and share expenses. It's normal. If he gets offended by a fair request, then he's not a man. He's a freeloader. Freeloader. The word was sharp, insulting, but somehow accurate. Thanks, Simone. Kiana finished her tea and stood up. Anytime. Simone nodded. And remember, you deserve better. Kiana returned to her desk, sat in front of the computer. She wasn't seeing the numbers but Elijah's face. How he called her petty. How he drank her beer. How he lay on the sofa while she cooked. How the children asked, will you be our mother? How she bought $580 worth of groceries, spent 2 hours at the stove, washed dishes alone while he watched football. Was it fair? No. That evening, Kiana came home later than usual. She deliberately delayed her arrival, needing time to think, to decide what should she do? Talk again and face more accusations, stay silent, endure, or kick him out and be alone. Elijah was home, lying on the sofa with his phone. He saw her and nodded. Hey, is dinner ready? It will be, Kiana answered curtly. She went to the kitchen, took out yesterday's soup from the fridge, heated it up, poured it into a bowl, and placed it on the coffee table in front of Elijah. He ate, leaned back on the pillow. Good. Thanks. One word tossed out in passing. He didn't even look at her. Kiana collected the bowl and started washing up. Standing at the sink, she felt everything inside her tightening into a knot. Anger, resentment, exhaustion, all mixed together. She dried her hands, went to the table, took out the notebook and flipped through the pages. Here were the expenses for the first weekend, $580. The second, $620. The third, $700 including the cookout. Utilities, $1,000. Beer, $300. Household cleaners, $200. Total for the month, $3,900. Kiana took a pen, opened a new page, and wrote the heading expenses for Elijah and the children. She started listing the items. Neat in a column. Groceries, $2,400. Utilities increased $200. Beer, $300. Household cleaners, $200. At the bottom, she drew a line and wrote the total, $3,100. She looked at the number. Half her salary spent on a man who called her petty. Kiana closed the notebook, stood up and went to the window. She looked at the night yard, the sparse street lights, the dark windows of the houses. Quiet, lonely. But she was lonely even now. Elijah was next to her, but he wasn't there. He wasn't a partner, not a support. He was just there living, eating, drinking, and she was serving him like a maid. Kiana went back to the kitchen, opened her laptop, and searched online for how to split expenses in a couple. She read a few articles. They all said the same thing. Expenses should be split fairly, either 50-50 or proportional to income, but always together. She closed the laptop and thought, so I'm right. My demand is fair. Elijah is wrong for accusing me of being petty, but how to make him understand? Another conversation would be useless. He wouldn't listen. He would get offended, use pity, talk about child support and the wedding. She needed something else. Something that would force him to see reality. Kiana opened the notebook again, looked at the numbers, and then it hit her. The idea was strange, almost childish, but it might work. She stood up, went to a desk drawer, and pulled out a pack of yellow sticky notes, small and adhesive. Then she opened the fridge. The case of beer, 12 bottles at about $6 each, $72. Kiana took a sticker and wrote, "Beer $72. She stuck it on the case. Bolin $6 a pound. Dicker. Bologna $6. Dumplings $9. Dicker. Dumplings $9. Yogurts for the kids $4 a pack. Sticker yogurts $4. Cheese $5 sticker. Cheese $5. Hot dogs $5 sticker. Hot dogs $5. Kiana methodically stuck the labels on every item she had bought for Elijah and the children. The fridge turned into a yellow field of price tags. She stepped back and looked. It was almost beautiful in a way. Absurd funny but honest. Then she opened her laptop, created a document, and wrote the heading June 2025. Expenses for Elijah and the children. Groceries $2,400. Utilities increased $200. Beer $300. Household cleaners $200. Total $3,100. Payment due by July 15th. Kiana's bank details below. She printed the sheet, took some tape, went to the fridge, and taped the sheet to the side of the appliance. Large letters impossible to miss. She stepped back and looked. The fridge looked like a store display covered in price tags. Kiana closed the door, returned to the kitchen, sat down, and wrapped her hands around her mug of cold tea. Tomorrow Elijah will see it. What will the reaction be? An explosion, a scandal, an accusation. Let him. She was tired of being silent, tired of enduring, tired of being convenient. Rain was falling outside the window, the drops drumming against the glass. Kiana looked into the darkness, listening to the rhythm. Inside she felt calm. For the first time in a long time she was calm. The morning started as usual. Kiana got up at 7, quietly dressed so as not to wake Elijah. He was sleeping, sprawled across the whole bed, the blanket on the floor. She went to the kitchen and put the kettle on. Outside the sky was gray. The rain was drizzling. June had been cold. Kiana drank her tea, looking at the fridge. Yellow stickers on every product, the sheet with the calculations taped to the side. Everything was still there. She hadn't taken it down in the night, hadn't changed her mind. The decision was made. Elijah appeared closer to 9, yawned, scratched his stomach, and headed to the bathroom. Kiana heard the sound of the water. He was mumbling, maybe singing, maybe just grumbling sleepily. Then he came out in his underwear and undershirt and walked into the kitchen. "Are you brewing coffee?" he asked as he passed her. "Brew it yourself," Kiana replied calmly without looking up from her phone. Elijah stopped and turned around. "What? Brew it yourself? The kettle's on the stove." He scoffed but went to the stove. He poured coffee grounds, added water, and put it on the burner. Kiana watched out of the corner of her eye. Elijah stood waiting for it to boil, yawning. Then the coffee foamed up. He took the kettle off the heat, poured a mug, took a sip, and grimaced. "Hot." Kiana said nothing. Elijah went to the fridge, reaching for the handle, got to grab a bite to eat. He opened the door and froze. Kiana looked up, watching his back. Elijah stood motionless, his hand on the fridge door, his head slightly tilted forward. 1 second, 2-5 silence. Then he slowly turned around. His face was unreadable. Surprise, anger, or just shock. "What is this?" His voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "What is this?" Kiana took a sip of tea. "This?" Elijah stabbed a finger at the fridge. "These stickers in this." He ripped the sheet with the calculations off the wall, crumpling it in his fist. "What in the hell is this?" "Financial transparency." Kiana set her mug on the table. "You said it yourself. Put up with it. We'll get married. We'll figure it out. I decided not to wait. Here's the bill for the month. Everything you and the children ate, drank, and used. $3,100. Payment due by July 15th. Bank details are at the bottom." Elijah stared at the sheet. His eyes darted over the lines. Groceries $2,400. Utilities $200. Beer $300. Household cleaners $200. Total $3 to $100. Are you kidding me? He lifted his head, glaring at her. "No." Kiana shook her head. "I'm not kidding. I keep accounts like an accountant. I record every expense. It's all honest. I have the receipts. Do you want to see them?" Kiana, what the Elijah choked on his words, clenching his fists. What the hell are you doing? What you forced me to do. Kiana stood up and walked closer. I asked you to help with expenses. You called me petty. Fine. If I'm petty, I'll be petty all the way. Here are my expenses for you. Pay up or move out. Elijah turned red. The paper in his hand trembled. Are you out of your mind? You're sending me bills. We live together. We're a couple. We're supposed to get married and you're acting like some street vendor. $3,100. I pay $1,200 in child support. I don't have that kind of money. Then earn it. Kiana crossed her arms. Or save it or move out. You have options. Elijah stepped toward her, poking her chest with his finger. Do you even hear what you're saying? I promised you a wedding, a family, and you're talking about money. Why the hell would I want a wife who counts every piece of bread? Not every piece. Kiana stood her ground. Her voice was colder now. For $3,100, that's half my salary. I put up with it for a month. I thought, put up with it, Kiana. You'll get married. Everything will change. But nothing will change. You'll keep lying on the couch, drinking my beer, eating my food, and accusing me of being cheap because it's convenient for you. Convenient? Elijah roared, making Kiana jump. Convenient for me? I gave up my rental apartment for you. I moved in here. I set up the kids' room. I set it up, Kiana interrupted. I bought the bed. I bought the toys, the bedding, the rug. You only brought 2 suitcases of clothes. Everything else is mine. Elijah opened his mouth, closed it, and stood silent. His face was twisted with fury. You, he finally spat out. That's exactly who you are. Petty, counting money while your man works his butt off. I work all day draining my nerves. I come home to relax, and you hit me with a bill like a hooker. The word stung, hitting her like a slap. Get out, Kiana said quietly. What? Elijah didn't hear her. Get out of here. Kiana raised her voice. Pack your things and go right now. You're kicking me out. Elijah laughed hysterically. Over some pathetic $3,000. You're seriously messed up. Maybe I am. Kiana walked to the door and flung it open. But this is my condo, my money, my life, and I don't have to support you. Get out. Elijah stood in the middle of the kitchen, breathing heavily. The crumpled bill was still in his hand. He hurled it to the floor. Fine. He hissed through clenched teeth. Fine, I'll go. But you listen to me. You'll be alone forever. Because with a temper like that, no one will take you. You're 38, Kiana. 38. Who needs you? Old, mean, greedy, no kids, no family, and you never will because you don't know how to be a woman. All you know how to do is count pennies. The words cut like a knife. Kiana stood, gripping the door frame to keep from falling. 38. Alone. No one needs me. Old. Greedy. Maybe. So. She forced herself to look him in the eye. But I'd rather be alone than with you. Elijah flinched as if he wanted to strike her. Kiana didn't back down. He stood there, fists clenched, breathing fast. Furious. Then he spun around and stormed into the room. A minute later there was a crash. He was slamming the closet drawers, throwing things around. Kiana closed the kitchen door, leaning her back against it. Her legs were shaking. She wanted to slide to the floor and sob, but she held on, breathing slowly, deeply. Elijah burst out of the room. 10 minutes later, 2 suitcases in his hands, his jacket slung over his shoulder, his face red and angry. The wedding is off, he snarled as he passed. I'm telling the kids you kicked me out. Let them know what you really are. Tell them. Kiana opened the front door. Just add that father lived off my money and got offended when I asked him to pay for the food. Elijah stopped on the threshold and turned back. You'll regret this, he whispered. You'll crawl back to me. I won't. Kiana met his gaze. Now go. He walked out, slamming the door. Kiana stood in the hallway, listening to the fading footsteps, the apartment building door shutting. Silence. She slowly walked into the bedroom and sat on the bed. The bedding was still warm on his side, smelling of his cologne. Kiana grabbed the pillow, buried her face in it, and burst into tears. She cried for a long time, raggedly, like a child. Everything she had bottled up poured out. Resentment, anger, disappointment. 38 alone, unneeded. Her last chance was gone. The family was destroyed. The children she'd come to love would never come back. Elijah, who had seemed like a savior, turned out to be a burden. But through the tears something else broke through. Relief. As if she dropped a heavy backpack after a long climb, she could breathe easier, lighter. Kiana wiped her face, stood up, and went to the mirror. Puffy eyes, red nose, messy hair. A pitiful sight. But she smiled. A crooked smile, but a smile nonetheless. "It's fine," she told her reflection. "We'll get over this." She went to the kitchen and picked up the crumpled paper from the floor. She smoothed it out, looked at the numbers. $3,100. Clear, honest figures. Her hard work, her money. She wouldn't spend it on someone who didn't appreciate it anymore. Kiana opened the fridge. The stickers were still on the products. She started pulling them off one by one. The beer went into the trash. The entire case. 12 bottles clanging into the bag. The bologna went to the trash. The dumplings went to the trash. Everything she bought for Elijah was gone. Only the children's items remained. Yogurts and cheese. Kiana paused, looking at them. Violet and Asher. She wouldn't see them again. Wouldn't read them stories. Wouldn't make pancakes. Wouldn't walk in the park. Her heart ached. She closed the fridge and stepped back. She couldn't think about the children. They weren't hers. They were the children of Elijah and the woman who left them. Kiana had just been a convenient unpaid babysitter. The phone rang. "Mayaki, how are you? I was thinking maybe we should meet up today." He moved out. Kiana said, "What? Who?" "Elijah just now. I kicked him out." A pause. Then Maya exhaled. "Thank goodness. I thought you were just going to keep putting up with it." I gave him the bill for the month. $3,100. He called me a gold digger, a snake, an old key. Maya's voice softened. "You are amazing. Honestly, I'm so proud of you." "I don't feel amazing." Kiana sank to the floor, leaning against the fridge. "I feel like an idiot. I fell for the first man who smiled at me. I believed he would save me from loneliness, but he was just looking for a free apartment and a live-in housekeeper. You're not the idiot he is. He used you. It's a good thing you figured it out quickly." "Quickly?" Kiana scoffed. "I wasted 3 months. $3,100. Nerves. Hopes. You could have wasted 3 years or 30 years like Simone from your accounting department. 3 months is nothing. You saved yourself." Kiana was silent, looking out the window. The rain had stopped. The sun was coming out. Rays pierced through the clouds, falling onto the wet pavement. "Maya, he was right. I'm 38. No one needs me." "Kiana, stop it." Maya laughed. "Seriously, 38 is nothing. You're beautiful, smart, independent. You have a condo, a job, and your head on straight. There will be plenty of good men who will value you. Elijah, he's a loser. 42, 2 kids, child support, renting a room. He's the one no one needs, which is why he latched onto you. Free housing, free food, free woman. You shut him down. You did the right thing." Kiana wiped her eyes and smiled. "Thanks, girl. Always, baby. Listen, I'm coming over right now. I'm bringing wine. We're celebrating your freedom. How about that? Come on over." Kiana got up off the floor. Maya arrived an hour later with 2 bottles of white wine, a pizza, and a cake. Here, she shoved a bag at Kiana. "We're drinking and feasting like proper women." They sat in the kitchen and opened the wine. Maya poured them both glasses and raised hers. "To freedom. To freedom," Kiana repeated, drinking it down. The wine was cold, sweetish, and pleasant. Kiana felt a warmth spreading through her chest. She was finally relaxed. "Tell me everything." Maya took a bite of pizza. "How did it all go down?" Kiana told her about the stickers, the bill, Elijah's reaction, his yelling, his insults, and how she kicked him out. Maya listened, nodding and grimacing. "Jerk," she summarized at the end. "A plain old jerk. You were right to kick him out. Give men like that an inch and they'll take a mile. I'm afraid I'll regret it." Kiana poured herself more wine. "That later I'll think I shouldn't have kicked him out. I should have just put up with it. You won't regret it." Maya covered Kiana's hand with her own. "Trust me, I've seen dozens of men like him. They don't change. If he was riding on you now, he'd keep doing it. Once you were married, it would be worse. He'd think you were his property, obligated to feed him, serve him while he lay on the couch drinking beer. Do you want that? No. Kiana shook her head. I don't. Exactly. You did great. Hang in there. They had another glass of wine. Kiana felt tipsy, but she kept going. She wanted to forget to dull the pain. You know what bothers me the most? She said when they finished the first bottle. That I'm the one to blame. I allowed him to treat me that way. I didn't stop him right away when he drank my beer. I didn't say anything when he brought the case home. I was quiet. I endured thinking I'll put up with it and he'll appreciate me. He'll love me. But he was just using me. You're not to blame. Maya opened the second bottle. You wanted a family. That's normal. That's not a sin. The sin is when a man uses a woman and then calls her cheap. But I let him. What should you have done? Maya poured the wine. Kicked him out immediately, not giving him a chance. You gave him a chance. He blew it. That's his fault, not yours. Kiana drank and thought. Maybe you're right. I'm always right. They laughed. Kiana felt lighter. Maya stayed until evening. They finished the pizza, the cake, and both bottles of wine, talking about everything: work, men, life. Kiana forgot about Elijah for a few hours. It was good. When Maya left, Kiana was alone. The condo was empty, quiet. She could hear the drip of the faucet in the kitchen. Need to fix that. Elijah promised, but he never did. Kiana walked into the bedroom, lay down on the bed, and closed her eyes. But sleep wouldn't come. Thoughts raced. Elijah, the kids, money, loneliness, it was all a tangled mess. She got up and went to the window. Outside was darkness, a few scattered lights. The city was falling asleep. Kiana pressed her forehead against the cool glass. She wondered, what now? How do I live alone again? No one beside me. 38 years old. How much longer will it be like this? But then she remembered Maya's words. Loneliness comes in different forms. There's loneliness with a man who doesn't respect you, and there's loneliness without him. The second one is easier. Kiana smiled. Yes, easier. Much easier. She went back to the kitchen, opened the fridge, almost empty. She'd thrown out all of Elijah's stuff. Only her groceries were left. Greens, tomatoes, cheese, the children's yogurts. She took the last of the children's yogurt and put it in a bag. Tomorrow she would take it somewhere, give it away. She closed the fridge, sat at the table, took out her notebook, opened it, and crossed out the page with Elijah's expenses with a thick cross-hatched line. No more pages like that. She opened a new page and wrote, plans for July. She thought about what she wanted, what she was missing. She wrote, fix the kitchen faucet. Buy new bedding without his smell. Sign up for yoga. She had always wanted to go to the beach, either alone or with Maya. Get a cat. She'd always wanted one, but Elijah was against it. Kiana looked at the list and smiled. Now these are plans. Nothing about a man or a family, just about herself. She hadn't had plans like this in a long time. She closed the notebook, stood up, went to the bathroom, and turned on the hot water. She stood under the shower for a long time, washing away the day. Those 3 months. And that Elijah, the water was hot, scalding, and pleasant. She stepped out of the shower, dried herself, and looked in the mirror. Still the puffy eyes, the red nose, but something else in her gaze. Not despair, determination. We'll get over this, she told her reflection again. Somehow she went to bed late. Before falling asleep, she checked her phone. No messages from Elijah. Not a single call. Kiana smirked. He thought. She would crawl back, apologizing, begging him to return. He can wait. She put the phone on the nightstand and turned off the light. She lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what would happen next. Work home like before, but now without the burden. And you know what? It wasn't so bad. The next few days passed in a strange daze. Kiana got up, went to work, came home. Everything was as usual, but as if through a fog. The condo felt too empty, too quiet. She caught herself listening, wondering if the door was opening, if Elijah was coming in. Then she remembered. No, he's not. He doesn't live here anymore. On Wednesday, Simone called from work. Kai, how are you holding up? I'm fine. Kiana stirred her coffee in the kitchen. I'm living. I heard you kicked him out. Good for you. I told you should have sent him the bill. I did. Kiana chuckled. He called me a gold digger and left. He left correctly. Let him go back where he came from. He found a free hotel. Simone, don't you regret kicking out your husband back then? A pause. Simone sighed. No, honestly, I don't. It was hard at first getting used to living alone, but then I realized it's happiness. You come home, silence, peace, no one shouting, demanding, or drinking. My money, my condo, freedom, key is priceless. Thank you. Kiana smiled. I really needed to hear that. Anytime. Hang in there. The first part is always the hardest. Then it gets easier. Kiana hung up, finished her coffee, and went to the window looking out at the yard. Children were playing on the playground, mothers sitting on the benches. Ordinary life. She was part of that life, just a different part. On Friday, she went to the pet store. She walked slowly between the aisles, looking at the food, toys, and beds. She went to the display with information about the animal shelter, address, phone number, photos of cats and dogs. Kiana took a picture of the address. Tomorrow she would go and see. Maybe she would take someone home, a cat or a kitten, so she wouldn't be so lonely. In the evening, as she sat in the kitchen with a book, an unknown number called. Kiana frowned and answered. Hello, Aunt Kiana. A child's voice, quiet, uncertain. Kiana froze. She knew that voice. Asher. Hi, Asher. She said softly. How are you? Fine. A pause. Aunt Kiana, why did you kick Dad out? The question was direct, childlike. Kiana squeezed the phone. Elijah set the kids against me. Of course, it was easier to blame her than to admit his own fault. Asher, these are adult matters. Your dad and I couldn't agree. He said you were greedy, that you didn't want to feed us anymore. Kiana closed her eyes. Asher, that's not true, she said quietly. I was always happy to see you. I bought groceries, I cooked, and I took you out. But your dad didn't like it when I asked him to help with the money. Adults have to split expenses. It's normal. But your dad didn't want to, so we had to separate. Silence. Asher was quiet, breathing into the phone. I miss you, he finally said, and Violet does too. She was crying when Dad said we wouldn't be coming back. Kiana felt tears well up. She wiped her eyes, forcing her voice to stay steady. I miss you too, sweetie. Both of you very much. But sometimes that's how it is. Sometimes adults can't be together. Will we see you again? I don't know, Asher. Probably not. Silence. Then Elijah's distant voice. Asher, who are you talking to? Give me the phone. A rustle. A struggle. Then Elijah's voice, angry, sharp. Don't call my kids again. You hear me? I didn't call, Kiana said calmly. Asher called. No more calls. You're a stranger to them. He hung up. Kiana put the phone on the table and lowered her head into her hands. She cried softly, silently. Asher, Violet. She had grown attached to them. Truly attached. And now they were gone. Elijah had turned them against her easily with one phrase. Aunt Kiana is greedy. She didn't want to feed you. Unfair. So unfair. But there was nothing she could do. They were not her children. They were Elijah's. And the woman who left them, Kiana had just played a temporary convenient role. Now the role was over. Kiana wiped her tears, stood up, and went to the children's room. Everything was still there. The bunk bed, the toys, the bedding with cars and princesses. She had tried so hard to make it cozy for them. Now the room was empty, useless. Kiana closed the door, returned to the kitchen, sat down, and took out her notebook. She added to her list of plans. Clear out the children's room, sell the bed and toys, make it an office or a library. She closed the notebook, decided no reminders, no pain. Life moves on. On Saturday, she went to the shelter. A small building on the outskirts of the city with dog pens behind it. Inside, cages of cats. There were many different kinds, ginger, black, striped. Kiana walked between the cages looking. One cat sat huddled in the corner. Gray with green eyes, small, thin, and scared. Kiana approached and knelt down. Hello, she said softly. The cat looked at her but didn't move. We found this one on the street a month ago, the shelter worker said. Very timid. Doesn't warm up to people, but she's sweet once she gets used to you. I'll take her. Kiana stood up. Are you sure? There are others who are more outgoing. I'm sure her. Kiana took the cat home, bought a litter box, food, and toys. At home, she let her out of the carrier. The cat darted under the sofa and hid. Kiana didn't try to pull her out. She put out bowls of food and water and went to the kitchen. In the evening, the cat crept out and cautiously sniffed around the condo. Kiana sat in the kitchen, not moving. The cat approached, sniffed her leg, jumped back, then came closer again. "Don't be afraid." Kiana held out her hand. The cat sniffed her fingers, licked them, then jumped onto her lap and curled up. Kiana stroked her, feeling the warmth and the purring. For the first time all week, she felt peaceful. "I'm going to call you Moo," she said. "You'll be Moo." The cat purred, squinting its eyes. On Sunday, Kiana cleared out the children's room. She took off the bedding, folded the toys into boxes, disassembled the bunk bed, and moved it out to the balcony. She would sell it later. She dusted, mopped the floor. The room was empty, bare. Kiana stood in the middle of it, looking around, thinking about what to do with the space. An office, a library, a studio? She decided on a library. She'd buy shelves, arrange her books, put in an armchair and a floor lamp. She would sit there and read in the evenings, her space, her own. She closed the door and returned to the living room. Moo was asleep on the sofa, curled up in a ball. Kiana sat beside her and stroked her. The cat opened one eye, purred, and went back to sleep. "It's okay," Kiana whispered. "We'll manage." On Monday at work, Kiana felt better. For the first time all week, work was easy without tension. The numbers added up. The reports wrote themselves. Colleagues noticed, asking, "Why are you so cheerful?" Kiana brushed it off. "Just a good mood." Simone came in during the lunch break and sat across from her. "So, how are things?" "Better." Kiana smiled. "I got a cat." "Moo." "Oh." Simone was delighted. "That's wonderful. Cats are the best antidepressants." "Totally. She's hilarious. She chased a candy wrapper for half an hour yesterday." They laughed. Then Simone asked, "Did Elijah ever reach out again?" "No, only his son called. Asher asked why I kicked out his dad. I explained as best I could. Then Elijah snatched the phone and yelled at me not to call his kids. Classic manipulator." Simone shook her head. "He's turning the kids against you to make you feel guilty. Don't fall for it. You didn't do anything wrong." "I know." Kiana sighed. "But it still hurts. I was attached to them. It'll pass. Everything passes. Give yourself time." Kiana nodded. "Time? Yes, I need time." That evening when she returned home, Moo met her at the door, rubbing against her legs and purring. Kiana picked her up and held her to her chest. "Missed me, huh?" The cat purred, nudging Kiana's neck with her nose. Kiana smiled. "This is happiness." Small, furry with green eyes. She fed Moo, then sat in the kitchen with her laptop, opening a travel agency website. She started looking at packages to the beach, Greece, Italy, the Caribbean. The prices were reasonable, especially for last-minute deals. Kiana chose Greece for 1 week, the end of July, for $1,000. It was expensive, but she could afford it. Now that she didn't have to support Elijah, she had money left over. She could spend it on herself. She booked the trip and paid with her card. It settled. She was going to the sea alone for the first time in her life, and it was going to be wonderful. She closed the laptop, stood up, and went to the window, looking out at the night city. Lights, roads, life buzzing. She was a part of that life. A small part, but a part. Kiana smiled at her reflection in the glass, thinking, "This is it. This is freedom. To do what you want, to spend how you want, to live how you want, without worrying about someone who calls you petty." She returned to the living room and lay on the sofa. Moo jumped up after her, settling on her chest. Kiana stroked her, listening to the purring. The city hummed outside, but here at home it was quiet and peaceful, and for the first time in a long time Kiana thought, "This is happiness. Simple, calm, a cat, a condo, vacation plans, my own life without a burden." She closed her eyes and smiled. "We'll make it," she whispered. "We definitely will." Tuesday started with a surprise. Kiana was at work reviewing invoices when she got a text from an unknown number. "Kiana, it's Lynn, Elijah's ex-wife. We need to meet. There's something to discuss." Kiana stared at the screen. His ex-wife, the one who left him for another man and abandoned her children. Why did she want to meet? Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Delete. Ignore. But curiosity won out. Kiana typed a reply. "Okay. When and where?" "Today at 6. The Corner Bistro on Main Street. Do you know it?" I do. I'll be there. Kiana put down her phone and went back to work, but her mind was racing. Why did Elijah's ex-wife want to meet? What did she need? Did she want to demand child support? Or was she complaining about Elijah? The day dragged on endlessly. Kiana checked the clock every 10 minutes. Simone noticed and asked, "Why are you so jumpy?" "I'm meeting Elijah's ex-wife." Kiana rubbed her temples. "She texted me. I have no idea what to expect." "Interesting." Simone narrowed her eyes. "Maybe she suffered because of him too. Maybe she wants to warn you." "Maybe." At 6 o'clock, Kiana left work and drove to the coffee shop. It was a small cozy place with tables by the window and the smell of coffee and pastries. She looked around. A woman in her late 30s, dark hair to her shoulders, jeans, a white blouse, was sitting at a corner table. She saw Kiana and raised her hand. "Kiana?" "Yes." Kiana walked over and sat down across from her. "Lynn." The woman smiled wearily. "Thank you for coming. I know this is strange, but I really need to talk." "I'm listening." An employee came over. They ordered coffee and sat in silence until he left. Then Lynn sighed, leaning back in her chair. "Elijah told the children that you kicked him out, that you were greedy and didn't want to feed them. Asher is very upset. Violet cries at night. I decided I needed your side of the story." Kiana squeezed her hands. "And why did you decide his version was wrong?" Lynn smirked. "Because I lived with him for 15 years. I know how he lies and how he turns himself into the victim." "I see." Kiana relaxed a little. "I'm not greedy. I just asked him to help pay for groceries. When the children visited, I was spending over $3,000 a month on them and him half my salary. He never gave me a dime. When I asked him to at least split it, he exploded, called me a gold digger, and said I was trying to get into his wallet. I gave him a bill. I printed out the expenses and put stickers on the food in the fridge. He saw it, called me a hooker, and left." Lynn listened, nodding. When Kiana finished, she let out a bitter, joyless laugh. "That's exactly what he did to me. For 15 years. I carried everything myself. I paid the rent. I bought the groceries, the kids' clothes. He worked, sure, but he spent his salary on himself. Beer, fishing, football with his friends. I asked him for help. He said, 'I'm tired. I work. You're the wife. It's your duty.' When I said I couldn't do it anymore, he accused me of being selfish. He said I was destroying the family." "And you left?" "Yes. I met another man, a normal one who respects me, helps out, and splits the expenses. We've been living together for a year now. The children are used to him. They're not his, but he cares for them. He buys them clothes, takes them to the park, helps with homework, and Elijah, he just pays child support and complains about how hard his life is." The coffee arrived. Kiana took a sip, deep in thought. "Why did you decide to contact me?" "Because Asher was crying yesterday." Lynn squeezed her mug. "He said you were kind. You cooked good food. You read stories. And he wanted you to be his mom. And now Elijah is telling him you're a bad person. Asher doesn't understand. Neither does Violet. I decided to find out the truth and tell the children." "Tell them?" Kiana looked up. "Yes. That you're not to blame, that their father is responsible for everything, that he doesn't know how to be honest. The children need to know the truth. They may not understand now, but they will when they grow up." Kiana felt a lump in her throat. "Thank you," she said quietly. "That means a lot to me. I really grew attached to them. Asher, Violet, they're good kids. I'm sorry it worked out this way." "Don't be sorry." Lynn covered her hand with hers. "You did the right thing. Elijah won't change. He'll always look for someone to ride on, to live off of for free, eating and drinking. And when he's asked to help, he gets offended, yells, and blames. That's who he was, and that's who he is. It's good that you figured it out quickly." 3 months, Kiana smirked. "I wasted 3 months. Took me 15 years. Lynn smiled genuinely this time. 3 months is nothing. They finished their coffee and talked more. Lynn talked about the children, how Asher was doing in school, how Violet was in daycare. Kiana listened, smiling. It was nice to hear about them, to know they were okay. When they said goodbye, Lynn said, "If you want, you can come visit the children sometimes. I don't mind. They loved you." Kiana shook her head. "Thank you, but no. It would be hard for them. It's better if they get used to me being gone. I don't want to hurt them." "As you wish." Lynn hugged her goodbye. Take care of yourself and don't blame yourself. You're a wonderful woman. Kiana walked home slowly thinking about the conversation. So Elijah behaved the same way with Lynn. 15 years living off her money. She endured it until she met someone else. And only then did she leave. Kiana imagined if Lynn hadn't left, she would have endured it for 30, 40, 50 years, wasting her life on a man who didn't value her. It was terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. It was a good thing Kiana had stopped in time. 3 months was nothing compared to 15 years. At home, Moo met her at the door, purring and rubbing against her legs. Kiana picked her up and held her close. Hi, little one. Did you miss me? She fed the cat, then sat in the kitchen with her phone. She opened her notes and started writing everything she felt about Elijah, the children, Lynn, herself. She wrote for a long time, her fingers flying across the screen, pouring out her emotions, her thoughts, everything she had bottled up. At the end she wrote, I did the right thing. I kicked him out. I didn't endure it. I didn't become convenient. Now I am free. Yes, I'm alone. But it's better than being with someone who doesn't respect me. She saved the note, closed her phone and looked at the calendar. 3 weeks until Greece. Kiana pictured the sea, the sun, the warm sand, alone, without a burden, without anyone demanding, blaming or pressuring her. Just her free. She smiled. The next 2 weeks passed peacefully. Kiana worked. In the evenings she took Moo for walks. Yes, the cat. Didn't mind the harness and leash and walked beside her like a little dog. It was funny and sweet. Neighbors smiled. Children pointed. Look, a cat on a walk. On Friday, Kiana was packing for her trip. Moo was sitting on the bed watching. Kiana folded dresses, swimsuits and books thinking. 2 weeks ago she was crying, feeling miserable and lonely. Now she was going to the sea alone. And it wasn't scary at all. The phone rang. Unknown number. Kiana frowned and answered. Hello, Kiana. This is Vince, Elijah's friend. Yes. Who is this? My name is Vince. Elijah gave me your number. Kiana tensed up. Why? Look, I know you two had a conflict. He told me everything, but he's in a tough spot right now. He moved out of your place. He's renting a room. He's short on money. He's paying child support and he barely has enough to live on. Maybe you could help him out. Just a little. He says you're kind. You'll take pity on him. Kiana was silent for a second, then burst out laughing loud and genuine. I'm sorry, but is this a joke? What? No, I'm serious. Vince, tell Elijah this. I am not an ATM, a charity fund, and certainly not the fool who is going to sponsor the man who called her a gold digger and a snake. Tell him to work, to earn money, to save like a grown man, and if he's short on cash, tell him to stop drinking beer by the case. She hung up and blocked the number. The nerve, she'd kicked him out, and he was still begging for money through his friends. He thought she would get emotional, feel sorry for him, and send him a money transfer. No way. Kiana went back to her suitcase and continued packing. Moo purred watching. Outside, the sun was shining and birds were singing. It was a good day. On Saturday evening, Kiana was sitting in the kitchen drinking tea. Moo was asleep on her lap, warm and soft. Her phone was on the table, the screen dark, quiet. Kiana thought about how her life had changed in a month. Elijah was gone. The kids were gone. The condo was empty. But Moo had appeared. The trip to Greece had appeared. The freedom to do what she wanted, to spend how she wanted, to live how she wanted had appeared. Was she scared? Yes, sometimes, especially at night when she woke up and realized she was alone, 38, no one beside her. But then she remembered Elijah lying on the couch, drinking her beer, eating her food. How he accused her of being greedy when she asked for help. How he called her a snake. How the children cried because he had turned them against her. And the fear faded because it was better to be alone than with a man like that. Kiana stroked Moo. The cat purred in her sleep. It's okay, isn't it? She whispered. We'll definitely make it. On Sunday, Maya came to see her off. She brought flowers and chocolates and hugged Kiana at the door. Ready for your adventure? Ready? Kiana smiled. I still can't believe I'm going. Believe it. You deserve it. Rest up, get a tan, sleep in. I'll look after Moo. Don't worry. Thanks, girl. They drank tea and talked. Ma shared work gossip. Kiana talked about her vacation plans. It was easy, friendly. When Mia left, She hugged Kiana tightly. You know, I'm proud of you. Seriously, you managed to do it. I was scared, Kiana admitted. Very scared. But I was even more afraid of living with him any longer. So I chose the lesser of two evils. Smart woman. Maya kissed her cheek. Fly, relax, and when you come back, tell me everything. Kiana saw her friend out and closed the door. She looked at her condo, clean, cozy, hers. No Elijah, no beer, no demands, just her and Moo. Good. Very good. On Monday morning, Kiana left the condo early, hailed a cab to the airport, suitcase, carry-on, passport, tickets all ready. In the cab, she watched the city rush past the window. She thought, this is my life, my freedom, my choice. At the airport, she checked in, dropped her bag and sat in the waiting area, opening her phone. She reread the note she wrote 2 weeks ago. I did the right thing. I kicked him out. I didn't endure it. I didn't become convenient. Now I am free. Yes, I'm alone, but it's better than being with someone who doesn't respect me. Kiana nodded to herself. Yes, right. Everything was right. The boarding announcement came. Kiana stood up and walked to the gate. She took a window seat on the plane and buckled up. The plane sped up and left the ground. Kiana looked down at the shrinking city. Down there was her old life with Elijah, with hopes of a family, with disappointment. And up here in the sky, a new life was beginning. Without him, without the burden, just her. Kiana leaned back in her seat, closed her eyes and smiled. The week in Greece flew by. The sea, the sun, the warm sand. Kiana sunbathed, swam, walked the narrow streets, ate at Tivaras, drank wine and read books on the beach. She met other tourists and chatted with them in the evenings. It was easy, peaceful. No one demanded, blamed, or pressured her. On the last night, Kiana sat on the shore watching the sunset. The sun dipped into the sea, painting the water pink and gold. Beautiful. Incredibly beautiful. Her phone vibrated. A text from Maya. Hey, how are you? Moo misses you. I do too. When do you land? Kiana smiled and typed a reply. Tomorrow evening. Tell Moo I miss her too. And I'm bringing her a present. A toy mouse. Perfect. See you soon. Love you. Love you too. Kiana put down her phone and looked at the sunset again. She thought, a month ago I was crying, feeling miserable. And now I'm sitting on the beach alone, free and happy. Truly happy. Yes, alone. But it wasn't a sentence. It was a choice. The choice not to endure, not to be convenient, not to carry the burden of someone who didn't appreciate her. The choice to live for herself. And it was the right choice. Kiana stood up, brushed the sand from her dress, and went to the hotel for her last dinner. Tomorrow she would be home to Moo, to work, to her life without Elijah, without the burden. And it felt good, very good. When she got home, Kiana hugged Moo first. The cat purred, rubbed against her and didn't leave her side. Maya helped her bring in the suitcase, drank some tea, and asked about the trip. Kiana showed her photos and told her stories. Her friend listened, smiling. See, Mia said as she was leaving. You were scared to be alone. Was it worth it? It was, Kiana hugged her. Thank you for supporting me. I wouldn't have made it without you. You would have. You're strong. You just don't always realize it. Maya left. Kiana was alone with Moo with her suitcase with memories of the sea. She unpacked, hung up her dresses and put away her swimsuits. Then she walked around the condo. Everything was in place, clean, cozy, peaceful. She walked into the former children's room. Empty room, bare walls. She had sold the bunk bed last week. Maya helped. She put the money aside for new furniture, shelves for books, an armchair, a floor lamp. They would be delivered and installed soon. It would be a library. Her library, her space. Kiana closed the door and returned to the living room. Moo was asleep on the sofa, curled up. Kiana sat next to her and stroked her. The cat opened one eye, purred, and went back to sleep. The phone vibrated. Kiana picked it up and saw a text from an unknown number. Kiana, it's Vince again, Elijah's friend. He asked me to tell you he's ready to come back, discuss everything, and work it out. Maybe you could meet. Kiana smirked. So Elijah isn't managing alone. Short on money, nowhere to live. Now he's ready to come back, discuss, and work it out. Of course, free condo, free food, free woman. Why wouldn't he want to come back? She typed a short reply. No. She deleted the message and blocked the number. That was it. No more conversations. Elijah was the past. A closed chapter. Kiana put down her phone, stood up, and went to the window, opening it wide. The evening air was warm, smelling of summer. Outside, children were playing on the playground, laughing. Life goes on. Everyone has their own, and she has hers. She went back to the kitchen and opened the fridge. Spacious, clean, fresh greens, her favorite blue cheese, a bottle of white wine, her groceries, her choices. No stickers, no cases of beer, no one else's dumplings. Kiana took out a glass, poured the wine, took a sip, and closed her eyes. Delicious. She had bought this wine in Greece in a small shop on the coast. The owner had told her he made it himself from grapes on his own plot. She had bought 3 bottles. She gave 2 away, 1 to Maya, 1 to Simone, and kept the third for herself. She sat at the table looking at the glass, thinking, "This is my life now. Without Elijah, without his children, without the hope of a family, just me, Moo, work, friends, and sometimes the sea. An ordinary life for an ordinary woman. But you know what? It was a good life. Peaceful, honest, without manipulation or resentment, without the man who called her a snake for asking for fairness, without the man who drank her beer and accused her of being greedy." Kiana finished the wine and stood up. Moo woke up, stretched, and jumped onto the kitchen table. Kiana stroked her, scratching behind her ear. "You know, Moo," she said softly, "I realized one thing. It's better to be alone than with someone who doesn't respect you. Better an empty fridge than one stocked on your dime. Better silence in the condo than shouting and blaming. Do you understand?" The cat purred as if agreeing. Kiana smiled, picked up Moo, held her close, and walked to the window, looking out at the evening city. Lights were coming on one by one, filling the darkness. Somewhere out there in one of those apartments Elijah was living, renting a room, saving money on beer, complaining to his friends about his greedy ex. Let him live. That was his choice, his life. Kiana was no longer a part of it. She turned and looked at her condo. Cozy, clean, hers. Tomorrow she would go to work. In the evening she would walk Moo. In a week, the furniture for the library would be delivered. She would arrange the books and hang pictures. In a month it would be her birthday. She would invite Maya, Simone, and a couple of other friends. She would bake a cake, open wine, laugh, and talk. Life would be ordinary, simple, without drama. And that was beautiful. Kiana put Moo down, closed the window, and turned off the kitchen light. She walked to the bedroom, lay down, and pulled up the blanket. Moo jumped up after her, settling at her feet. Warm, soft, peaceful. The city outside was loud, living its life. But here in Kiana's condo there was silence. A good kind silence. Without yelling, without accusations, without a stranger snoring on the sofa. Kiana closed her eyes and smiled in the darkness. 38 Alone, free, and happy. If you liked my story and want to hear more, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. If you'd like to support me, you can do it through Super Thanks. It would mean a lot. In the comments, tell me which city you're watching from and what time it is so I can see how far my story reaches. I've added 2 more life stories on the screen just for you. Click one now and let's keep spending time together. Much love. See you soon.